Professor, you were saying that building majority governments within a presidential system, it's strongly linked with good representation, governance, avoiding blackmailing and fragmentation. You suggest in your book, Ingeniería Constitucional, different proposals. For example, second ballot. Why second ballot for a system, like in Mexico, that we haven't had that in the past?
Well, I mean, I'm for second ballot system, both in parliamentary and in presidential system.
Like in France?
Like in France. So the French type of semi-presidentialism. Because it has to, the second ballot means that voters vote twice. Mm-hmm. Unless in the first shot one candidate wins the majority of votes, then after 2 weeks or whatever, another election is run for the remaining candidates. Mm-hmm. Now here there are many solutions for that. In France, gradually, the level for the entry into the second ballot gradually went up to 12 and something percent. That was the goal, and the goal was strong enough to handle the situation. In all other countries, if you propose a double ballot system, the smaller parties start asking a lower threshold of admission. So not 5%, but 4%. Mm-hmm. Then it's useless, because if in the second ballot you still have 5 or 6 parties, it's useless. So I have proposed for Italy, but even Italians are not very different from Mexicans. I proposed that the first ballot, which is like voters express their first preferences. Mm-hmm. They're not conditioned to anything. They say, I want a revolutionary killer, and they vote for him. The second ballot should also include, it's not a matter of percentages, the first 4. So at the second ballot, the first 4 winners of the first ballot would enter. Now the first ballot really is like a single-member district system. Okay. Because parties are forced to present their better candidate, since it's a one-shot vote. Mm-hmm. And electors, basically, if they don't have lists of 30, 40 members, but just 6 or can sort of get around and get some information. Right. And know something about that. The other suggestion that I have made is that on the second ballot, if the third and fourth entrant withdraw, they will have some places reserved on a central list to have minimum representation. Not too much to impede single-party government, but enough to keep them alive, to give them a road. So if they run, they lose this possibility. If they withdraw, then they will have these extra seats distributed on a list basis after the elections. Now, I think this is a very good system, because it forces parties to present the best known candidates they have, because each voter on the first ballot has 1 vote. So they have to provide the best they can. And in first 4 avoids the litigation about the threshold or the inclusion, yes. And then if you say 15%, if they withdraw, otherwise they lose that privilege. If they withdraw, they will be elected on a national list of 15-20% of seats. I think that is very likely to impose, to create a two-party system with some third-party representation, and would function quite well.
Seems to me that the French system was built in the idea of being and to work like a presidential system in the first instance. If the president don't have the majority in the assembly, they will go to this semi-presidential system with the second ballot.
Well,
and all that
so
stuff.
it is a semi-presidential system with the understanding that if a single party wins a majority and expresses the president, it will perform like a normal presidential system.
Of course.
Otherwise, the power is basically in the hands of the prime minister.
Mm-hmm.
So the president maintains prerogatives, foreign affairs especially, but basically the strong man in that system is the prime minister.
The prime minister.
And so it's very different from the American system. Semi-presidentialism sort of, puts quite well together two or three different worlds, which, if true, would be a good thing.
One of the main suggestions that you made for the Mexican political agenda, it's the MP's re-election. Why do you think that re-election is a good system for the political system, for the Mexican political system?
Well, if members of the low chamber, parliament, cannot be re-elected, they're just passing through parliament as people pass through hotels. They know that they cannot have a career there, so they have to please the party which is in power and which says, well, he's been good, he's always voted for us, let's give him another position elsewhere. So that affects a single mandate, affects very much the independence, or the power of independence of the members of parliament, because they know they're there in transit.
Mm-hmm.
So whether they do well or not, they cannot, and that is, I think, a very counterproductive system. And that's one of the problems. Now, this has been introduced because the PRI likes to control its members. And this is the best way of having a president and a party that rules at whim.
Some critics say that re-election is not a very democratic way of recycling political elites because they remain in power for so many years, like the case of America.
Well, continuous recycling adds up to nothing. If you have one man that is well recycled, he has to leave anyhow. So it provides no incentive for single members of parliament to do anything which may displease the PRI in this case, the majority party. So I don't, the most important statesmen in European history have been pretty old. It's, I'm pretty old, and I have experienced that young people have energy, enthusiasm, and real new energy, and therefore may have new ideas. But old people have wisdom and experience. So a mix of both, I think, is a good solution. And to say that you must have people that at 30 years old are out of business, parliamentary business, I think it's an enormous waste of potentially good candidates.
So in your words, it's not very undemocratic then. It's a way of professionalizing the career of MPs.
Well, it is a way of depriving members of parliament of any independence. Because if they are not, if they don't obey to the party's instructions, they're fired for the rest of their life. I mean, anywhere, not.
They won't have important exits for new careers.
And after all, no, you don't learn how to be a good member of parliament at school.
Mm-hmm.
So you learn it being there. And if after 4 years, what is it in Mexico for?
3 years for the low chamber and 6 for the Senate.
Even worse. If after 3 years you cannot represent yourself, you're thrown out, well, they're there waiting for another appointment, and that is, they're very subservient. I mean, psychologically, it's inevitable. If I received at 30 years a position for 3 years, I would work for the next position because
clearly
my 3 years, I mean, I have consumed my stipend, and I'm newly floating on nothing. So this is a very strong instrument of control of the I think, or an equivalent party on its members. And this is very destructive because Parliament has neither no real training function nor any independent power. They just have to say yes.